Hello, beautiful friends. Here we are once again in great bliss. Today is a new moon. It's a new beginning. And today we have a very exciting transmission about the soul. So this hopefully will be completely life-changing, eye-opening, consciousness expanding, and it will give all of us amazing tools how to move and live and exist in this reality. For me, this is a big transmission. I don't think I have done this one before in this way, because it just really transformed within my own being through meditations after 11/11. And so this beautiful team sponsored the entire 11/11 event that went all around the globe, created a massive change within the cosmos, really. It aligned the earth with the grand sun. And so we are now in a whole new world. So again, I will ask everyone to monitor the chat who has been here with us for a long time, answer all the questions, and I will just go within and focus on what is to be revealed about the soul. So thank you for doing that. And so this lifetime, as you can tell, surely, is a very different lifetime from any other lifetime we've had. Until now, the lifetimes were kind of very similar in nature. It was about being recycled back into the reincarnation system, kind of constantly going through the same, a little bit of consciousness, quite a bit of unconsciousness. But in this lifetime, we truly came here to experience a difference and what we call a shift of the ages. We also can call it ascension. This opportunity came to the planet in the past, of course, but the planetary consciousness that we are of in this world was not ready to make the shift, which means there was too much unconsciousness. And so this time we call it awakening. And what is truly happening here, when people say awakening, is like, well, who's waking up? What's waking up? It is truly that we now have access to whole new parts of our being that got disconnected throughout the ages. It is also the return of the divine feminine into this world, which is the truly magnetic love of this world. It is the magnetic love of creation. And so here we have a beautiful picture of our cosmic mother. Our cosmic mother, you would think, how could she have been disconnected? But when beings are not in love with life, then they are not truly expressing their love nature, which is magnetism. And so we want to be expressing the quality of magnetic love, and that is the quality of Divine Mother. And so here we are. So much is going on within us. We are truly being changed. This is the lifetime when we go through the shift. This is the lifetime when these other parts of us have reconnected. And I experienced a lot of it, on a personal level. So that's why I tell the stories that I tell. I don't want to ever point to myself, but I want to just show. I like storytelling, and stories are always a wonderful way to understand things and also to be activated through the stories, and sometimes to become curious about our own evolution here, but also inspired and also to understand. So that's why. And so what really got reconnected to us is this. This is a pillar of light that actually is our original design. And this is a descending pillar of light, but it also is an ascending pillar of light. This is one way to see it. You would say that it comes from the infinite source, then it goes into the spirit, then to the divine self, the soul, the higher self, the personality self, and we can give it many different names. This is another way of seeing it. A pillar of light comes from source, descends, and creates different levels of our being, one of them being the Christ self. You can also view it as a different type of, here we have imagery, source as Om, and coming down, descending, creating different bodies. And one of them is what we call, again, Christ consciousness as Krishna. So we want to be very open-minded and not attaching any of it to certain, being, We want to be as unlimited as possible so that all options can be understood. And so I'm going to go through that today, but I'm going to share not what I read, not what I studied, but I'm going to share exactly what Yogananda taught me when I met Yogananda. I've got his sweet picture here. Yogananda came to me one day in his etheric body that was very, very physically visible. And it was in Encinitas in his hermitage. And, you know, it was in the past, it was possible to visit his house, his hermitage, actually inside the house. And it was open, I think, once a month, and you could go inside and walk through the beautiful home where he lived and where he wrote his autobiography of a yogi. And so I was waiting at the door, and when they opened the door, he was standing on the steps that go up into his living room, and he was just looking at me. And the funny thing was that I never knew of Yogananda. Just a friend of mine told me it's a nice place to visit, so I went to visit. But of course, it's all by design. And it's amazing when you truly in the presence of someone like Yogananda, because suddenly your soul memory comes back to you. And not only does the soul memory comes back to you, but also the guru, this amazing avatar, sees through you beyond this time and space reality. So Yogananda was looking through me, and all I could do was cry. And I didn't cry because I was so happy. I cried because I felt so bad. I felt like I should have done more. I should have meditated more. And I always say I already was meditating as much as I could. But the encounter with the guru makes you feel like you should have done nothing else in your life than to seek God, seek the divine, and put everything else kind of, you know, on the back burner and just dedicate yourself to that. So that was the feeling that my soul had. So I didn't have the feelings of my human self. I suddenly had this big realization of Yogananda being like the most important being in my life. And so my life changed that day. And so Yogananda asked me to study with him for 2 years, but not to read his books at all, but actually just to truly study with him. So he gave me a certain teaching. This was before 2012. It was in 2010. And so I've been practicing these teachings within my own being. And I already thought, well, they led to exactly what he said. This all led to direct contact with God beyond faith. It led to contact with God beyond imagination. It really does happen that when we do spend time in meditation, when we reconnect the pathway within us, we do reach higher and higher and higher levels of our original architecture. And so, of course, we are all architected the same way. We are not beings that came out of apes through evolution. We are architected beings. And so we have many different bodies. And I don't mean past lives and future lives. I mean, right now, we have many different bodies. We start with the physical at the bottom of this, but the higher we go, the more bodies we have that we discover as different subtle bodies. And so, as I was doing what Yogananda taught me to do, I was moving through these different bodies. And again, not through visualization, but through experience. And so that's the kind of transmission that we will be receiving today, and it will be specifically focusing on a level that we haven't fully yet explored so much together here, because we are focusing on the divine self, on the God self, and we will speak about that too a little bit, but mainly today at the soul. So 1111, as you know, on 1111, our focus and mission in this lifetime here was to align the axis of the world, to participate in it, to assist with it, to support it with our intention in the projects that we co-created. And so, you know, from the emails, for example, that Patricia Cota-Robles sent, the incredible result of this alignment, something that this world, and not just this world, but all the other worlds within creation that are really linked to us through creation, through the original creation of this big world. All these worlds have been waiting for this alignment. Now, to a little bit again go back to that and how it relates to our own alignment. And access is really important within creation. That's why when we do yoga, and especially, for example, the techniques of the Kriya Yoga or any other, I assume, mystical tradition, mystical breath, it always requires an internal access. And this axis is important. It is our center of the being. It is how the energy flows. Now, the way that I compare it is, for example, when we are, let's say you plant a tree and you plant it sideways, the tree is not going to thrive as much as it could if you plant it straight up. It is the natural flow of planetary and cosmic energy and all the other energies within cosmos, which for us, of course, is the galactic energy, the solar energy, the universal energy. But an alignment is absolutely essential. The same when we meditate, we want to have our axis aligned with our true north and our true south. And so the earth too obviously was out of alignment since the fall of the axis, which I remember as a past life. And a lot of memories come to us through our divine self. And for me, my divine self has been very selective about what to remember. And so I remember all the things that went wrong and how we are here to fix them. And so the fall of the axis created complete amnesia on this planet. And you would think that when beings go into amnesia, that everyone just forgets everything and then everybody is blank. The thing is that we went blank for a split moment. We all went blank. It was the disconnect from our higher selves that we have several of, including, of course, the divine self, the I am presence. And so we then became kind of diminished and we kept on going in a diminished state of really what you would call unconsciousness. Until 2019, it was so difficult and a lot of effort to be able to align our own being with these higher levels of our own self. In 2019, and I experienced this in August in Encinitas actually, suddenly we got reconnected to what we call the divine self, the I am presence, and a lot of information started to flow in. And so in 2020, this, of course, was like the next degree of it, of the experience. And so we would call that awakening. This is why we are going through what we call awakening. It is because actually it is the personality self at the bottom of the structure, the human at the bottom of this, receiving now actually direct information through the pillar of light, down through all these upper selves into the world down here. And so suddenly the human here says, I am waking up. I am awakening to something higher. I am expanding my consciousness. And that is actually our original design. And so after 11/11 that we participated in, when this alignment took place, connecting us to all the upper solar worlds, solar meaning information of our original design, solar consciousness. So now we have a new flow. And that's why we will go through the next stage of awakening. And as you know, this will peak at the winter and, of course, for Australia, summer solstice in December, on December 21st. And so today, let us look at the level of the soul. Again, I don't want to teach anything that came from books. And so I'm going to teach everything the way that Yogananda showed this to me. And it might not be exactly the most, perfect language, but again, I want to share it from experience. So I created this graphic here today. It's kind of a fun graphic. So there's a lot going on here because there is a lot going on here. At the soul level, there is so much going on that today we will dedicate this whole transmission to this. This will help with every condition of our life. It will help us understand it, but beyond that, to gain soul power. And again, thank you for monitoring the chat for all our beautiful initiates here. So let's go at this. When I met Yogananda, he took me through this process and I always say, it took me 2 years of every day learning from him to be able to see this big picture and to truly self-realize it. The number one thing, we start with the big picture. The big picture is that we have what we would call source. From source, we have kind of the spilling out. And so you see the light of source spilling out into what we would call spirit. I'm going to use some terms that we are familiar with, and spirit will be the best term for use. It is the ocean itself. And so spirit, being the ocean, in terms of the spirit, it is infinite. Now, spirit gives birth to souls. It is truly the spirit that creates the souls. The souls, the way that I've been able to see them, look like, people call it cosmic eggs, and I'm going to call it a cosmic as well. So here I was able to create 3 cosmic eggs. But think about the spirit giving birth to infinite number of cosmic eggs. So this is a good visual. Spirit is the ocean, and within the ocean, we have infinite souls as cosmic eggs. And they are floating in the ocean of spirit. They are also being nourished by spirit. I marked the North Pole and the South Pole of each cosmic egg as the red dot and the blue dot, just to show that the soul too has a North Pole and a South Pole. So the energy of spirit flows into the soul, kind of like fuel, fueling the car, fueling the vehicle of the soul. Without the fuel of the spirit, the soul doesn't have the juice. And we need juice at the level of the soul to create realities. At the level of the soul, we have also infinite realities. That's why we have here many different characters within each soul, and also the infinity symbol. In human terms, if we wanted to give it some kind of label that might be able to help us, the soul has been dreaming millions of lifetimes. We can call them lifetimes. Whether they are all here on this planet or not, whether they are all in this dimension or not. But you see, millions of characters are dreamt by the soul. And we also have infinite amount of souls. Isn't that amazing? Let's just take a moment, everyone. If that's okay with you. The spirit is the ocean. The ocean is infinite. The spirit creates souls that don't have arms and faces and legs. The souls are very large, individualized fields of energy that are sustained by the spirit. This is huge, absolutely huge. Because we need to know our architecture. Exactly. And so right now it's going to be intellectual, but at the same time, the energy behind it is huge. So, spirit creates souls. Souls are like cosmic eggs floating in the ocean, and they are just dreaming. They are dreaming millions of so-called existences. The soul is the dreamer, and the soul has been dreaming and will be dreaming. And sometimes these dreams happen in this world. Sometimes those dreams happen on a different world. Sometimes they happen in a certain dimension, other dimension. And we would call it also past lives, present lives, future lives, parallel lives. Within this infinity of experiences is one character that is right now being projected into this world, into this reality, into this realm. And this character is you, and you, and me, and everyone else. But you see how a soul projects one character into this reality, this realm, this dimension, in this moment. And so it seems like the character has a soul. Yes, the character has a soul, but the soul is on the soul plane. The reason for this is, and this is really important, there is different levels. The I am presence is different from the soul, and yet it is all the same structure, right? That's why we have this as kind of like a diagram of this. Today we are focusing on the soul. The soul is the dreamer. The soul is where stuff is happening as movies, movies upon movies upon movies. It is like being, I compared it yesterday to being inside Netflix, where you have infinite, really, I don't know how many movies exist within Netflix, but, just to compare it to something like that. It is a cloud within which we have all this information, all these movies, and these movies are stored within the soul. And that's why someone like Yogananda or any other great avatar can simply go to the person's soul level. They review everything at once within one sight. They don't have to spend millions and millions of years to review every lifetime, because time and space does not exist at the level of the soul. Just like when you would go to Netflix and you would probably, let's call it millions and millions of movies are there. It is timeless. The movies themselves, they contain information about time. Maybe it was ancient Atlantis, maybe ancient Lemuria, maybe some science fiction from a future time. The time exists only within the movie itself, but it is not real at the level of the soul. Space doesn't exist at the level of the soul because there is no space. It only exists as a setting within the movie. So let's say you see some Western movie and they riding the horse through Arizona. You see the beautiful red rocks. They only exist as a setting in the movie, and the movie itself is just a file stored at the level of the soul. Now, this is so huge. The revelation, I've been working with Yogananda since 2010, and 2 years were really intensive. And then we had a pause. And then again, after 2019 in October, he started coming back, and it was a different level of work, much more of co-creation and collaboration. But it was only after 11/11 that he allowed for this bigger understanding and more clarity of the soul. And it is so important to us all here. And I will just transmit whatever comes, there will be an aha moment so that we can actually gain soul power. So I do want to say that it's important not to mix all the levels of our being, just like your arm is not your leg, your soul is not your divine self, and yet it is all part of one beautiful structure. They all had different function and different purpose. And so just like our personality is not the soul and the soul is not the personality, that's why we want to make distinction between each, and to be able to truly be knowledgeable of our internal and multidimensional structure. And again, I compare it to like driving a car. This is a big vehicle. It's a cosmic vehicle. It's so cosmic that, it's so multidimensional. And today we are studying about the steering wheel, for example, So this is just that one part. And it's a good one to think about. Let's say the soul is the steering wheel. And then the divine self would be the gas pedal. So, that's the kind of difference we have here. So today we are just focusing on the one who is dreaming constantly realities upon realities upon realities and making up all these dream characters. And one of the dream characters is you and me in this world, and of course, everyone else. All dream characters. Now, this is really fascinating. We always heard Yogananda, and I put the quotes also in the email, that this is a dream reality. But for some reason, it is not just a dream, it is actually a dream within a dream. And so that's something that we'll also talk about. Why is this reality, or it has been until now, a dream within a dream? And so when we wake up from one dream, we actually wake up to the bigger dream. And so what is the bigger dream? The bigger dream is what we call the cosmic dream. It is the dream in which beings know who they are, all of them. They know that they are within the cosmic dream of our cosmic creator, whatever names we want to give it. And so they fulfill that purpose fully and completely in every moment, and they understand the dream, and they are rejoicing. They are honored to be part of the dream in every moment of their existence, which is eternal. So here, as the character here at the bottom is projected from the soul level onto the canvas of this third dimensional world down here. And the character very often is projected in a way that the character forgets who they are. And that creates the cream, the cream, it creates the dream within a dream. When the character forgets, the character no longer has continuity of consciousness. The character starts believing that they are the character. They start playing the role, but kind of messing it all up too with so-called free will and lack of consciousness, and creating what we call karma. If the character knew who they are, just like these great avatars, they do not forget who they are when they come here into this world, then they are consciously acting at all times. They are masters of their being. So this time after 11:11 allows us to go through this revelation. So the soul is dreaming a dream. Originally, the idea was that the soul will be dreaming millions of beautiful dreams for the purpose of experience that will never touch the soul. Because the soul itself is actually immortal, and will always remain perfect at the soul level because it is not defined by the dreams. The soul exists on the soul plane, but of course, there are rays of life force that have to somehow keep this being here in this world in existence. So you could say that you and me are projections of our soul's dream coming down into this physicality through the physical body and through the subtle bodies that we have in this world. But the soul itself does not ever fully incarnate. And yet, within the soul are all past lives that we've had, all possibilities that we call parallel realities, all future lives, multidimensional lives. And the soul also then contains the dreams that we call after death in the astral sphere. That still the astral dreams are also dreams of the soul. And when there is an upgrade to what we call the causal plane, that too still is a dream of the soul. So the soul can be dreaming in dimensions, in time and about time and space, but it doesn't become it. So if we are a character, then there is a lot to be explored within the soul, getting to know our, you would say, many different gifts, tendencies, limitations that we've experienced, all the experiences, it is all within the soul. So, these days we have a lot of people who say they can read past lives, and maybe you met someone who really can. I think it's very, very, very rare for someone else, unless they are a master being, to truly be able to go into somebody else's soul and to be able to review all at once, which can take truly just split seconds, and to be able to tell us what is important. But it is up to all of us and our ability within all of us to actually reconnect this architecture, which is our own, really, and to be able to get to know thyself, which is self-realization, of course. And so we will do also a meditation to be able to do that and learn how to do it. But it's just good to know that here in this world, very often the personality self feels disconnected from the soul. And so it doesn't seem to have all the resources. And yet when we learn to go to the soul plane, we can gain all these resources of the soul. And at the level of the soul, we can get to know the dreamer that is dreaming us. The soul is not identified with any specific character within itself. And that's really important. The soul does not identify with any specific character within itself. It keeps producing these dreams and the dream realities without becoming them. The soul remains in a state of dreaming, and the soul knows that the soul is dreaming. So you can truly say that the soul remains perfect, immortal, pure, and it is not corrupted by the dreams that might be totally, right? The dreams could be all over the place. But the dreamer is not affected by the dreams. but the dreamer is making experiences within the dream world. Just like a lucid dream, we can wake up. So let's say a lot of the practices, in Tibet, they taught dream yoga, how to wake up in a dream. And then when we wake up in a dream, if you've had a lucid dream, it's very, very fun. It is absolutely massively entertaining. And we know that the dream cannot harm us. And that's the level of the soul. The soul knows it cannot be harmed by a dream. It knows that it is eternal and that is actually evolving, that is sustained by spirit. And one day, the soul will be more identifying with the spirit than the dreams, but that's okay. It's all an amazing process of creating experience. The experience actually never happens at the level of the spirit. The spirit is not coming up with all these cosmic dreams at this level of personality and identity. It doesn't create dream realities at this level. The soul is the dreamer. The spirit is truly the absolute that never actually even has been touched by any of it in any way. The spirit is eternally blissful. And that's the level of spirit. It's complete bliss. It's complete what Yogananda called the ever new joy happens within spirit, because the spirit has never ever even suffered. The only one who seem to be suffering, are the characters in the movie. And because the characters in the movie in this world embodied into a physicality that has a nervous system and has senses, they seem to experience everything as real. And we are all in it, right? But it all has to do with the functioning of the senses and the nervous system through the body. So what happens when a person has a near-death experience? Because that's the only time that people come back and they can tell us what they saw, right? Or when a person has out-of-body experience or is able to go to these higher states of consciousness. They go through many different layers, and we have many different layers around us. Let's say the person only makes it into their own emotional body. And so at the level of the emotional body, for example, or the mental body, the human being might have a lot of nightmares. Because as you know, the condition of this world is that many people do have a lot of nightmares within the emotional and the mental body. And so let's say they go through the near-death experience, but they don't make it all the way to the level of the soul. They make it in their own mental and emotional body, and it will feel like hell for some people, of course, not all of people. Some people make it to the level of the soul when they have near-death experience. And what do they get? Suddenly there are many characters. All the loved ones are there, and they get a live review. How is that even possible? Because at the level of the soul, to watch the movie is a split moment, incomparable to the time how it operates here in this world. So at the level of the soul, the person can just get a live review, and it doesn't have to be linear at all. And they get to watch the movie in the Netflix of the soul. And then the collective within the soul, which is all the characters that your soul has ever dreamt, make a decision, talk to you, give you advice. Kind of nobody judges anyone, right? Because there's no one judging the movie. The movie simply is a good movie or not a very good movie, depending on what you decide. And we can come back down to improve the movie. At the level of the soul, decisions also are taken that normally we don't understand in this world. And so you can make a decision about also working through what we call karma, learning new lessons. This all happens at the level of the soul, not at the level of the human self down here that is the personality. And so when we go to the soul, we can get to know the past lives. We can experience ourselves also as a collective, but it is all within the soul. And so our purpose is not to even, I think a lot of the near-death experiences, there's a lot of misunderstanding too, because it seems like we go to some heaven and there are some beings who are giving us this and that and showing us the life review, but it is the level of the soul. Some people, when they go through near-death experience, they end up in the spirit and they have a different experience, and it's more feeling completely at home in the oneness of all love, feeling one with God, and just being so eternal. So that too is another option, of course. And so our ultimate purpose here is to what we call work our way back up into the top of this pyramid here. And that is pure spirit, the ultimate spirit. And so beyond the soul is the spirit body. And through the spirit body, we also go into more and more subtle energies of the spirit itself. And that's where there is no form, there is no experience. And for example, Yogananda, when they asked him about dreaming at night, he said, the true yogi goes into the spirit where there is no story going on, no character, no dream, and it is just pure light and oneness with really God. And so that's at the level of the spirit. And so if we were to describe what the spirit is from all the different traditions, this is not just about yogis, this is every mystic who dedicated themselves to the internal exploration through meditation, through love, through devotion, would come to the same realization. And this is our self-realization, that at the level of the spirit, there are no movies. There is no movie characters. The movies and the movie characters are the realm of the soul. At the level of spirit, there also is no duality. The duality happens also within the soul, within the movies of the characters. The spirit itself has never, ever suffered. It's always in bliss. Even the soul has never suffered at the level of the soul in the soul plane, but it was producing movies. And some of the movies ended up being movies with suffering in them and about suffering of the characters in them. But the spirit has never suffered. The spirit has never actually even divided itself. It never divided itself to just become souls. The spirit remains beyond all things, and yet all things are within the spirit. And so the ocean did not divide itself, but it created those dreams. It created those dream opportunities for the soul. So the spirit has always been whole. The spirit has always been complete, completely complete, needing nothing, desiring nothing. And so mystics speak about the desire of the spirit, that it's actually without desire, the desireless desire. The spirit will always remain perfect. There is no imperfection within the spirit. There is also no imperfection within the soul on the soul plane. The only imperfection could be the characters in the movies. The spirit will always be limitless, ever present. The spirit truly is everywhere. It is boundless. It is undivided. It is pure. And the best thing about the spirit, that there are no conditions within the spirit. And since there are no conditions within the spirit is always unconditionally happy. And so that's my favorite thing about the spirit. So even the soul, though, the soul is also very similar to the qualities of the spirit. So if we want to say what the soul is at the soul plane, it is a reflection of the spirit, and yet the spirit is beyond the soul, and yet the soul is within it, just like you see here in the picture. And so the soul also receives the qualities of the spirit to also be never harmed by the movie. And so if we want to awaken the character down here, which you see many different options, it is just the projection that seems so real to us down here, doesn't it? And we have to question, how real is it really? And when it hurts, why is it hurting? And so how do we resolve it down here? Well, the number one, of course, will have to be some level of mastery to be able to trace back how we descended. And then because we descended, we can, of course, ascend. Does it mean the character disappears? In a way, yes. And so I just had this experience a few days ago, again, through the 1111. I think all of us can absolutely have whole new experiences. And that is the experience that the mystics could describe often as samadhi. And that simply happens when the body here in this dimension is able to completely disconnect through different yogic practices, breathing, and there's a lot that goes into it, from all the senses. The being pulls all the awareness up even beyond the soul into oneness with spirit, where there is no character, no dream, no reality, no condition. And it is even the character dissolves. And yet the body remains here in this world. Yogananda had that beautiful samadhi experience that his students witnessed. And so that's what happens when the character is able to trace back, and they know exactly how they're pulling the energy through this multidimensional spine. It is a spine that goes beyond the body. It is truly our ascension tube through which we can ascend. But if we ascend into the level of the soul, there will be a lot of characters. It will feel like a very typical near-death experience. And that's, again, that too is a dream. It's a lot of dreams, a lot of dreams. And we can go to the astral plane. It's going to be a lot of dreams. We can go even to our causal plane, still dreams, but beyond the causal plane, you would go into the nothingness and yet the everythingness of spirit. So it's within all of us. So when we meditate, we want to become really aware of this ascension tube that goes through the spine. And these days, we have expanded our architecture. We have expanded our architecture to be not only, the physical spine, but we have a multidimensional spine. We have really the light of the soul shining upon us, shining through us, in a way giving us the experience of life here. We have now 12 chakras. So we have expanded much more into the rainbow body that is happening here. The rainbow light of the 12 qualities of the divine that we have worked with, that we see here as the circle of the majestic 12. We want all that light to be shining through every chakra of our being that we have. And we now have been upgraded to the 12 chakra system. And so allowing the fullness of the upper bodies that we have shine fully and completely through this being that is down here in this world. allowing the luminosity of the rainbow body to truly be expressed through us with freedom, completely liberated, simply letting go, simply letting go. And so again, the meditations that we do here at the bottom of the structure, right? They allow us to liberate. It's called liberation after all. Liberation is essential. The liberation from the illusion of the character, but also the liberation of the channels in the human body, the liberation of the nervous system, the liberation of the chakra system, and allowing the light of your spirit all the way up there shine through this being into this world fully and completely without putting any lampshades around us or any sediments, any mental, really, disharmonies, of course, because the mental body itself, when the mental body of the third dimensional self is very active, it keeps producing so many vibrations. And when we come into stillness, the key is to come into the stillness of the mind, complete stillness of the mind, and then fullness of the heart. And that opens us up. And so through meditation, we want to focus stillness of the mind, fullness of the heart, and to be able to go to the soul level. And so just 3 more minutes about how this works. Let's say the character down here is not experiencing harmonious conditions. Now, more than ever before, we can go into the soul to actually resolve the conditions of the character in this world. The conditions are always a result of the soul's dreaming and all the experiences the soul already has had, and they are all happening right now. Not happening, they all exist right now within the soul. Just like in the Netflix library, everything is there right now. And because it is right there right now, we can learn to go through the pillar of our own structure to the soul level. And at the soul level, to be able to resolve the conditions of the character. And so that's why meditation allows us to go up to the soul level, become very familiar with how the soul operates, and then maybe come back with different solutions or even resolutions. Solutions and resolutions, resolving the karmic patterns. When we manage to go even beyond the soul plane into the beautiful world of the spirit, the solutions get even better. And so that's how we then dissolve the lower human self. And we can still be here in the body, but to be more and more and more luminous in terms of consciousness and the lightness of our being. And so I hope that all this made sense. And again, we'll go deeper. We have also event repeating today at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then tomorrow we will have an event. And this lunar cycle, normally we like to do, of course, new moon to full moon, just to be on some kind of schedule. But December, it's a holiday season and we have the solstice, and some of us are going to Ohio to the Serpent Mound as well. And so we will at least work today, which is December 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. And so that's going to be our schedule, and we will deeply explore the workings of the soul.